Hello, my name is Max. I have Asperger's syndrome. Let me try that again. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, but given recent developments in medical knowledge, it would be more accurate to say that I have either autism spectrum disorder or that I am a high-functioning autistic. Now, if you are a member of either the baby boomer generation or Generation X, you hear the words high-functioning autistic, and you probably immediately think of the movie Rain Man, the Oscar-winning film from 1988. This is because, for a few decades, Rain Man was the only mainstream depiction of autism available to our culture. This might shock some of you. I only watched Rain Man for the first time this past week. To be honest, I never felt compelled to seek out this movie or any other representation for my condition in media. While some of my autistic brethren might find validation from it, I find that depictions of autism just hit so close to home that they sometimes become uncomfortable to watch. Not because the depictions are bad, but because they are painfully relatable. However, this past week, I made a conscious decision to stop avoiding these depictions of autism, because it is with depictions of autism that I saw an opportunity. Mental health and autism used to be a focal point for my YouTube content up until very recently. I had to move away from it because it wasn't gaining as much attention, which by proxy harms my channel's ability to gain views on future videos. But I always wanted to come back to this type of content because I found it was the most meaningful content I had ever worked on. With this video, I hope to start a new series where I analyze and criticize representations of autism. Whether or not this series happens comes down to you. When you're finished with this video, make sure to like it if you liked it and share it around. Doing so helps me immensely. With that out of the way, let's discuss whether or not Rain Man is an accurate and respectful depiction of autism. First, I will provide a spoiler-free synopsis for those who know nothing about the movie. Tom Cruise plays Charlie Babbitt, an emotionally distant yet business-savvy collectibles dealer living in Los Angeles. One day, he learns about the passing of his father, a man with whom he had a strained relationship. He feels compelled to go to his funeral, but not because he seeks emotional closure. Rather, he is expecting a big inheritance from his father's estate, including a Buick convertible and $3 million. While he gets the Buick, he does not receive the $3 million. He is not told at first who is receiving the money, but with some investigation, he learns that the money is going to a mental institution located in Cincinnati. After traveling to said institution, he finds out that he has a long-lost brother named Raymond, played by Dustin Hoffman. He is the one that will be receiving the inheritance money. After a brief exchange of words, Charlie learns why Raymond was put into a mental institution. He has autism, or, as his doctor refers to it, high-functioning autism. With Raymond, Charlie sees an opportunity. He figures that if he more or less kidnaps Raymond and attempts to get custody of him, he could get his half of the $3 million. Though Charlie's intentions here are purely selfish, his experiences with Raymond bring out an emotional bond that he never thought he was capable of. That's all I will say about the story, just in case you haven't seen it and want to check it out for yourself, which you should, because it's a pretty good movie. It's hard to say though whether or not it deserved the Oscar for Best Picture. Don't get me wrong, the film is more than competently made. The script is well written, and Dustin Hoffman's performance as Raymond is absolutely mesmerizing. But I can't help but think that some of the film's original shine has worn off over the last 34 years. I imagine that the novelty of the subject matter back in 1988 compelled the Academy and the public to heap as much praise on it as they did. This is a common trend for Oscar films that I and others have noticed. A film will sometimes be awarded the Best Picture Oscar not based on how well it showcases the various filmmaking disciplines, but on the emotional resonance of the story. I can't help but think that if Rain Man released in 2022, it might not receive the same kind of reaction. Surely Dustin Hoffman would be nominated for Best Actor, but not much else. Then again, there weren't as many Oscar bait films in 1988 compared to genre classics like Die Hard, They Live, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But is the representation done well? Technically, yes. But there were a couple of unintended negative side effects from this film's depiction of autism. I will get those negative elements out of the way before I get to the plethora of positive ones. First, because Rain Man was the only mainstream depiction of autism for a long time, Western culture tended to equate autism solely with the way it was represented in this film. Nowadays, we can more easily distinguish between the quote-unquote high-functioning autism that Raymond Babbitt has and the high-functioning autism that I have. Nowadays, we understand that autistic traits exist on a spectrum, and depending on how many traits you can have higher high-functioning autism like myself, or lower high-functioning autism like Raymond. But back in 1988, those distinctions were not yet mainstream knowledge. The result of this lack of distinction is the second negative side effect I wish to discuss. I think the makers of Rain Man knew that they were showcasing a lesser-known affliction in their film, and so, naturally, they wanted to incorporate as many symptoms of autism into one character as possible. Unfortunately, lumping so many symptoms of autism together made Raymond Babbitt's version of autism extreme, which encouraged some of the more simple-minded members of the human population to find humor in the extremity, just as they do with other extreme mental afflictions. For several years following the release of Rain Man, this attitude pervaded popular culture. An example of this can be found in the movie 21 Jump Street. In that movie, a police officer named Schmidt disparages his partner Jenko by calling him Rain Man but without the math skills. Normally, I am fine with finding humor in sensitive subjects, including autism. You know, one movie that I think poked fun at autism in a respectful way was Guardians of the Galaxy with the character of Drax the Destroyer. However, if the effect of that humor is making out autistic people to be lesser human beings to be laughed at, then of course I will protest. Being online and being publicly autistic has led some commenters to equate me with Rain Man, which in their mind gives them permission to not only degrade me, but other autistic people. But like I said, these were unintentional side effects. Despite the fact that Raymond Babbitt's condition is extreme, it's amazingly accurate, and done in a very respectful way. At almost every point in this movie, there was something that Raymond did or said or experienced that I could equate to a moment from my own past. The relatability of Raymond's experiences did give me the usual discomfort, but they were done so well and with such respect that those feelings of discomfort were accompanied by deep admiration for the film's writing. Allow me to list all of the symptoms that Raymond and I have in common. One of the most common is difficulty with social communication, which manifests in multiple ways. Most people will look others in the eye when talking to them, at least here in the Western world. Raymond does not look people in the eye when talking to them. He speaks in a monotone voice, which I tend to do when I am not trying to be entertaining on YouTube. He almost always has the same expression on his face, one which, to most people, might suggest disinterest or disrespect. The singular expression thing is one that I relate to a lot. Growing up, my dad would tell me to get that miserable look off my face, when most of the time I wasn't miserable at all. That was just the way my face would sit. Raymond clings to routine and familiarity. For example, his bed needs to be by a window. He needs to have a desk with readily available writing utensils. He needs to eat specific foods of a specific amount on specific days. On Wednesdays, for instance, he needs to eat only fish sticks, and he needs to eat exactly 8 fish sticks. While my routines are not this specific, I do need routine in order to maintain mental equilibrium. When an autistic person's routine is interrupted, even if it's in a very minute way, what often results is a violent tornado of emotion. With Raymond, he needs to watch his favorite TV program which only airs at a specific time. If he can't watch it, he experiences an emotional meltdown. For myself, one example I will offer involves the creation of my YouTube videos. I need to record at a specific time of day at a specific day during the week in order to minimize interruption and maximize production quality. If something interrupts me when I need to record my voice, my brain has difficulty processing that. 50% of the time, I am able to restrain an emotional meltdown, but that requires invoking all of my mental and physical strength to do so. As for the other 50% of the time, my brain overloads and I start to slap or punch myself in the head. This is why, in Rain Man, on a number of occasions we see Raymond hit himself. When something unfamiliar enters his surroundings or daily routine, the struggle that his brain goes through in order to process that is so painful that he hits his head. This is how autistic people instinctually try to get their brain to comply. It's like how some people, more so in the past, would hit their television in order to get better reception. It's our primal instincts kicking in when something isn't working or is causing us distress. We use our fists as a defense mechanism. But it's not all bad. One of the most common symptoms of autism is above average intelligence. As a general rule of thumb, if you have high-functioning autism, the lower one's social capability is, the higher one's intelligence is. That intelligence is often best represented by pattern recognition. While I'm not a savant like Raymond is, I do have a talent to notice patterns and details that most others would pass off as meaningless. This is why, for example, I think I've had some degree of success doing theory videos for video games. But Raymond's ability goes to a whole other level. When a box of toothpicks opens up incorrectly and a bunch fall on the ground, he is able to figure out how many dropped within a few seconds. Ask him to multiply any two numbers and he can do so in his head, instantaneously. While autistic people do not all have the same talents in regards to numbers, above average intelligence is something that nonetheless tends to manifest in a majority of high-functioning autists. It's a shame that this fact didn't used to receive the same focus as our social ineptitude, which I think is a problem that Rain Man inadvertently contributed to. But that said, we do live in a culture today where autism is more widely understood and accepted. Due to this, I genuinely believe that a far greater number of people who watch Rain Man today will see Raymond as not just an autistic person, but as a sum of positive and negative traits, just as we would any other individual. Best of all, it is thanks to the filmmakers' respect for the condition and their genuine understanding of it that makes Rain Man an even better representation of autism in the modern day. There are few, if any, things that age poorly in regards to the film's depiction of autism. Because of this, I would recommend this film to those who are wanting to know more about the condition. Although I would add the caveat that it is an extreme version of autism and doesn't represent the condition accurately as a whole. And that was an analysis of Rain Man from an autistic person's perspective. Remember to like this video if you liked it. Make sure to share it too, that helps me out a lot. If you want to see my analysis of Drax the Destroyer as an autistic character, click the video you see on screen now. Finally, please recommend other representations of autism that you would like to see me analyze in the comment section below. Until next time, stay safe and stay yellow.